What does a rocket scientist even do? Because I feel there's like a saying, like, this is not rocket science.
In the 7 minutes, you need to decrease your speed from 20,000 kilometers per hour to zero.
You have space law applying in Earth, like on the ground, in air, and in space. So it's quite invasive.
There are 60% mission loss during the journey to the Mars.
Because we keep fighting for the same cow that people were fighting 2,000 years ago.
Okay, Isi, and finally, after 2 years, we met in Dubai. I live in Abu Dhabi, you are in Dubai. We moved to UAE at the same time.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
You were in LA, I know.
Yes, I was in LA a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And of course, as a space fan myself, I mean, space is what makes our hearts sing. I did a whole tour of LA, but also based a lot in space. Like in the Hollywood Walk of Fame, I went to see the stars from Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin.
Wow.
Griffith Observatory, Pasadena, where my favorite show, The Big Bang Theory, was supposedly filmed. So, you know, the classics from space.
Yes, space is our lives actually. How
Yeah.
we met in the International Astronautical Congress and Space Generation Congress that all involve the global space industry. So wherever we go, we find someone interested in the space and we get in touch with them.
Oh yeah, it's a very good community. I had to go to LA a couple of days before meeting my family, and of course I ran into all my space friends, and I met only space people. But I mean, we're a family in the end. It's a very small community, so I feel we're a family after all.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. How did you get to rocket engineering, actually?
Actually, when I graduated from undergrad education, I was looking around. Then I met with a professor. He was in Stanford University and he was a rocket engineer. And he came back to Turkey, Istanbul. I didn't imagine. We just met. He invited me as a PhD, master's and PhD student. Then we found a company in Turkey related to defense ministry about the rocket technology. So we developed the rocket systems from like say from 2 meters to 15 meters, different sizes, different propellants that fuels. So it was like a light. I mean,
A
it
spark.
just started. Yeah.
What does a rocket scientist even do? Because I feel there's like a saying, like, this is not rocket science, or
Yeah.
you don't have to be a rocket scientist
Yeah,
for this.
definitely.
It's like the symbol of being really, really smart.
Yeah.
So what does a rocket scientist actually do?
Actually, well, I get this question when I meet with the people because, to be honest, I cannot identify myself. Anyhow, like I tell the people like I am a rocket scientist because I am. I mean, people are aerospace engineer, mechanical engineer, dealing with some technologies, but I am directly designing a rocket system, including the structure, performance, and sizing. So if you want to launch from one location to another location to the space, that's why I calculate and design, and plus I'm doing the real testing. So basically, that's why rocket scientists do all of the aspects.
I feel in the future, aviation and rockets are going to kind of merge.
Yeah.
You know, like I know Elon Musk has a lot of plans for that, to have intra-orbital flights. So in the end, we could go from LA to Australia or from Dubai to Australia in 20 minutes instead of like the 15 hours
Yeah,
it gets.
definitely.
The flight to LA was now 16 and a half hours straight to Dubai, LA.
Yeah.
Once you have intra-orbital flights, so when we can use rockets in a more general mass way, we could be in half an hour.
For me, right now, we are far away.
Yeah.
Because in order to design such a rocket systems which will land from a one spot to go to the space and go to the, let's say, another spot, it will take time because you need to optimize too many systems in the structure and the performance. However, it's amazing how SpaceX developed reusable rocket systems. For example, we are like we fly from, let's say, Dubai to New York with the single airplane. And we use this airplane again and again and again. It's reusable. That's why airplane companies get profit. It's the same that Elon Musk did. They use the same rocket again and again, and they don't have maintenance costs, huge maintenance cost. They don't have any like manufacturing costs. They will do just minor maintenance, and then they use again. So that's the same logic actually.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very wild. And imagine how expensive it would be to fly if you could use the airplane once or
Yeah,
twice.
yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Definitely. The cost of an airplane, let's say $90 million. Imagine that you pay $90 million in per flight. You don't pay $90 million. You keep that. You
Yeah.
just pay the fuel and a passenger cost. I will actually change the topic from rocket science to to your field. It's extremely unique. In the air law, I can understand. Okay, if I lost my luggage at the airport, okay, I have my law. But in the space, I don't know. So if I go to Mars, if I lost my luggage, or if I want to buy a property, how it works? I mean, what are the scopes of the space law?
So space law is a very interesting area of law because, as you mentioned, when you are when you're in Turkey, you adhere to Turkish law, and when we are in the UAE, we have UAE law. So law is very territorial, right? There's hardly any cases where you go to another country and you have a different type of law. Just doesn't really happen. Same with maritime law. When you are at sea, there's also different types of law, like international waters is very different from the coast, and in air law as well. As the airspace actually is completely divided. So, for instance, Chile, which is in South America, basically like hanging from the continent,
Yeah.
our airspace touches with the one to New Zealand. So you go all around. So there's no empty spaces like we have with international waters. So in air law as well, you're bounded by that country. Now in space, it's a very different approach to law, since you have space law applying in Earth, like on the ground, in air, and in space. So it's quite invasive. And then because like how humans sometimes can be, we actually expand our law to like the end of the universe. Like if you would be at like Mars for now as it stands, it would be like the space law that we created here on Earth, all the way to the end to like the Oort cloud, which is a little bit ridiculous. So it's quite an invasive kind of law. However, it's very general. We have 5 international treaties, which are very short, and most of them are very general principles. So, for example, space debris, huge problem. We don't even have a space treaty on that or laws that are very strict. We actually have soft law, like recommendations that come from the UN. If you lose your luggage on the way to Mars, then we don't have a space tourism international treaty. Actually, space tourism wasn't even included because all these treaties are from so long ago. And no one even imagined this because all the space treaties were made when we were talking about Sputnik, or we're talking about like the Mercury astronauts, maybe the Apollo missions, but that's kind of where it ends. So now space law is very different. And we're basing most of the things on recommendations and countries kind of behaving because space is hostile, is dangerous, and we have to do it all together. But once we start to dominate it a little bit more, I do feel we're going to start falling into more problems and having to regulate in different ways as we're doing now. That's Artemis Accords is an example of that. Like ditch the international treaties and start doing bilateral agreements with spacefaring nations like the US. They set the rules, we sign and follow.
Yeah, yeah. Especially who is leading the space that creates the rules in general.
It shouldn't be that way because all countries in the UN have the same status. We all have, there's no hierarchy. There's no hierarchy between laws or countries. But the reality is that it's in a very political arena. So there are political undercurrents that influence this. And for example, the Moon Agreement, which is an agreement that is protecting the moon and wants to have regulations that wants space exploration like resources and moon like space exploitation is possible, they want to have new laws according to it, which is not a problem. But then the Moon Agreement said, and all of what we get from the resources and all the benefits have to go to all of humanity. So no big spacefaring nation actually signed this. Nor the US, no Russia, China, EU. Actually, Saudi just retired from that treaty. They said like everything for everyone and all the whole humanity. Absolutely not.
Oh
So
my God. That's the fundamental approach we should follow to protect the planet we live. It was like long time ago that we had maybe more protective laws for the earth, but now it changed. All the commercialization, all the like technology is to tend to take to the earth and consume the sustainable, let's say, energies and the fuels, go for more artificial like environment. It shouldn't be for the Mars or the moon, because apparently if we go the direction of exploration, space exploration, at some point we will at least little bit settle to the moon or the Mars. I'm pretty sure at least we will have some space stations or like space laboratories as we have right now, international space stations. However, imagine that one country settle down to the moon. If you do not have like protective laws, you can try to consume all the resources on the moon and take advantage of that. Like there are the mining, space mining from the moon or asteroids, and like some countries want to take these resources, bring to the earth, and become more rich. So that kind of actually approaches are really fundamental, I think.
I think you touched on various like interesting topics at the same time. Of course, even like the Outer Space Treaty, which is like the space constitution, sort of say, that one has the peaceful uses of outer space always in hand, and that is the focus. And that is good because it means no nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destructions, or like Star Wars, no Death Stars
Yeah.
in space. So it's good to have the peaceful uses. And I think there's a difference between like leaders and a great leader.
Yeah.
I do think a great leader has the sustainable development goals in the forefront of their decision making. I think they always will have the sustainability and protecting the environments, as we have failed a little bit to do on Earth, in the decision making when it comes to space exploration. And I think our generation as well is a little bit more in touch with this because we've seen how climate change affects us, how the pollution problems that we have. So we'll be more conscious. When these decisions were made in the past, no one really knew like what plastic, how damaging it would be.
Yeah.
Now we have microplastics in like the fish that we eat. So we're much more conscious
definitely
on the things that we're doing. So I think that protecting the lunar environment, it is something that is it's being worked from the foundations, even if it's still very hard to have all these colonies in the moon or Mars. We are already working, there are space lawyers already working on having the foundations for this, to have it in a more protected way. And when it comes to space resources and mining, many people have that idea. Like you'll go to an asteroid, you'll get gold, come back, and everyone will have like golden shoes. Or like in Dubai, we can drink coffee with gold. But the reality is that when it comes to space mining, actually the first thing we're going to mine is water. It's ice. Because we need water. So the pole sections of the moon, so the north and southern poles, they contain ice. And that's the first thing that people are going to mine. And they're going to be used within space. So to get to the point to go to an asteroid, mine diamonds or platinum or gold, bring it back to Earth and make it something that is actually a good business model, we're talking like a lot of time. Like it's not going to happen in the near future. Not in my lifetime, I think.
I follow the institutions or like companies who wants to do this approach. They failed. Like they emerge, for example, from US with some funds. They create some effect in the space industry, but after like 1 year, they are gone. Why? Because their approach is not sustainable.
No.
It's consumable. So
it's really far. Like people don't, sometimes they grasp the how far things are. Like going to the moon takes you like 3 days. Like it's really far. So an asteroid or Mars,
Yeah,
that's really far. And I
definitely.
feel, of course, at the beginning to go to asteroids or even now in Mars, like if you think about it, Mars is a planet that is only populated by robots.
Yeah,
Actually, Mars only has robots. And it's a really weird thought because we put them there. We have all the rovers and the
yeah,
helicopters. But when people think of like robotic countries like Transformers, well, Mars is a planet solely populated by robots. And that is because it's so hard to get there. And for humans to get there, I mean, to an asteroid, to go to the asteroid belt, it's going to be really long, a really long time. And the first thing we send are robots. So artificial intelligence, all of these things are going to help us to go to the hostile and dangerous places. Because as you said, astronauts, they have needs and requirements. I was locked for 3 months in the pandemic and I was going crazy. Really, it really affected me so much because we had a very strict lockdown in Chile.
yeah,
And in the pandemic, we saw how many people like lost it because they were locked for 3 months or even sometimes like a week, but 3 months. When you go to space, like to Mars, you're going to be, as you said, like in a lockdown for six
definitely,
months.
definitely.
Now, not everyone is an astronaut.
Yeah.
They're highly trained people. They have a very
Mhm.
specific, it's not the normal Joe that just goes to space. So they are very well trained and they have
Mhm.
personalities that will adapt to this. But still, it's really hard. So the whole setting colonies in Mars, as you said, it's going to take time. And I think with robots and artificial
Uh,
intelligence is the
de-
first step.
Definitely, because in your speech you touch really good points. I will comment about that one, especially the generations, which means the next generations. The next generations will see this challenge to go to the Mars, especially for the Mars, because going to the moon is like 3 days. You can have some Earth dependent support, but
Yeah.
for the Mars, you don't have these earth dependent supports. For the next generations it will be a quite nice challenge. And then that's the question, when you look to the Mars, as you mentioned, it's a robotic planet.
Yeah.
It's on the surface and around the planet. There are the too many satellites around to Mars.
Yeah.
However, if you know that I get this information back in years ago while I was doing my PhD, the mission success to the Mars is only 40%. Actually, the those you see on the Mars, it's just a 40% success. There are 60% mission loss during the journey to the Mars.
Why is there a 60% loss?
If you look, United States, Russia, and other countries such as India performed. Even in the UAE,
Yeah.
we have a Mars mission in the organized by the UAE. So in total missions, the success rate is 40%. The reason is some of the uh, satellites just pass through the Mars. They didn't reach the correct orbit. So they didn't enter the Martian orbit. They just fly away. Some of the rovers just crash during the landing. When you enter the Mars atmosphere, you need to stop in 7 minutes. That in the terminology, we call it 7-minute terror. So in the 7 minutes, you need to decrease your speed from 20,000 kilometer per hour to zero. So it's extremely challenging. Then most of the missions is failed because of it crashes. So there are the different mission types. In total, in all history from the 50s, 60s to the up to now, success rate is 40% to the Mars. So can you send a human to the Mars? That's a tricky question. Or can you send maybe robot or with artificial intelligent skills? So that's the one point. I think the all global space industry will think about that, and I think with the global success about the AI tools, maybe merge with the space missions, that we will create better robots that also communicate with the ground station in the Earth, right? And we will send them to the Mars, and we will give them some task like we did in the rovers. Because if there is a rover on the surface of the Mars, there are the missions. It drills to the surface, it takes the sample from the surface, it does the image processing, send it to the Earth, we check the images. There are different tasks. Maybe we will create a robotic system more advanced, and they will go, not the humans at
I
first hand. I
mean,
don't know.
for sure. Like when you start building, you're gonna start with 3D printing, right? Like 3D printing
Mm-hmm.
is gonna build like the infrastructure of space. And I think robots like the movie Wall-E that is cleaning Earth,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have something similar, but just building the habitats in the moon or in Mars at first. As you said, I mean, with the 7 minutes of terror and the 40% chances of actually succeeding, those are very low. It's a high risk. And I feel in the past, I was reading now a very interesting book about, it's called Moonshot, which is about the Mercury astronauts and the
Mm-hmm.
Apollo missions. And you can see through the stories of Alan Shepard, for
Mm-hmm.
example, or Dickey, that were very involved in this, that they took a lot of risks because it was like this Cold War, this competition, and it was like we have to get to the moon before the end of the decade, as Kennedy said, or they had to do it before, like the Russians, no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
and the cosmonauts as well. We have to do it before the U.S. no matter what.
Yeah.
People died. Now, if you had an accident where you said we send people and the first people like die in Mars, it would be a scandal. Like now,
Definitely,
failure,
definitely.
not an option. And we changed as well. And that's why many people ask me, like, the people that don't believe that we landed on the moon, they always
Yeah.
ask me, like, but if we went there when technology was less than an iPhone, why haven't we been back? And I was telling them because failure is not an option. We can't have people dying. And because you have to make it sustainable. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't just land there because of the purpose of landing, hit a golf ball and just take a sample and go back. That's just not. That's why we have rovers in Mars. Go there, take a sample,
Mm-hmm.
and then, like send the data analysis or thing back to Earth. So there's a point of sustainability as well, but of like the chances are really low. So
Mm-hmm.
for now, as you said, I do think that robotics and AI are the things. And it's not a very regulated area, by the way.
Yeah.
AI and space law are there. I know some lawyers who have like their PhD in this, but it's something that is being developed now. It's very recent because life happens and the law always follows afterward because
Yeah.
we can't regulate things that we don't know or doesn't exist. They'll
Yeah.
always happen first and then we'll be late, but we'll regulate it for the future, hoping it doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
I think like AI is quite part of the solution, actually not the problem for space exploration, for sustainability. But also I do see that there's challenges in how to regulate it. Because questions to
Mm-hmm.
you, like if we have a crew that is landing, but it's all based on AI and the landing crashes, everyone dies. Like who's liable for that?
Yeah.
Can we blame it on AI? Is it the country that used it?
Is
It's
there a law for AI? We blame the AI.
it's
It's
quite
yeah.
difficult because now it's very evident.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have liabilities and responsibilities, it's very evident because we are doing much of the work as well. And private entities, they always have to respond for governments because governments are responsible and liable for all their space activities, including the
Mm-hmm.
privates, including their universities and organizations. So whatever Elon Musk does with Starlink or SpaceX or whatever problem they have, actually the United States is liable if they crash, for example, a satellite from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then the US will deal with Elon Musk internally. But at an international level, it's between countries. So it makes a lot of sense. But when you put AI in the mix, then the liabilities and
Yeah.
responsibilities they start to diffuse a little bit. It's not that easy.
Even inside the AI, there are the sections like quantum computing,
Yeah.
encryption, artificial intelligence using LLM tools. Like, that technical terminologies in the AI we heard about in the conferences. Even AI itself needs to solve and regulate all the technical aspects plus protective aspects, because in the quantum computing methodologies that now it's emerging, there is a fact that cybersecurity. So how you will regulate cyber security with the law and encryption mechanisms. Internally, AI itself has also huge ocean that should be like figured out, then implemented to the space industry, technology, or in different fields as well. So this is a huge field. But what I see from AI as a direct application that we also discussed this like before this podcast little bit, the flooding to the Dubai. After flooding,
Yeah.
a huge flooding, I follow the NASA and European Space Agency. Then I see that they did image processing to the Dubai. So what it shows, you can track flooded areas. You can do image processing using AI tools. You can improve this quality, and then it can be a post processing. Of course, it may not be early warning system, but you can spot the exact flooded areas, and then you can improve your infrastructure to prevent the flooding. So actually AI is directly used in earth observation systems. That is really good tool, but still, I mean, if we combine these AI, advanced space exploration, space law, there is a long way that we need to follow.
You touch on very interesting points. We always talk about space as the fifth industrial revolution, but mind you, the quantum revolution, quantic revolution is also there, kind of running parallelly. And AI as well, everything that has to do now with digitalization of everything, like the blockchain, decentralized financing, that's also going to impact space. It's actually quite interesting. And AI will touch on many of these aspects as well. And as you said, the image processing, yeah, the Dubai floods in April were
Yeah.
crazy. And but one of the things, as you said, is the post-image processing. So maybe it doesn't help us. It's not part of the solution
Yeah.
during, but definitely after. And it's funny because you say that AI will help you with Earth observation. So satellites observing Earth, right? And one of the problems that astronomy has is that we look the other way around. Ground-based telescopes, or even the Hubble, because the James Webb is super far, they look the other way around. So
Yeah.
they have interference by satellites. But then AI is actually being developed now to help to fix the images that are affected by this. So imagine you have a picture of whatever you're looking at, say a star, and you feel like there's a cat that just went and scratched the whole image. Those are the lines that you see from satellites. And with AI, there's also image processing that you can do afterwards to fix it. Because you see things that we don't. And that is not the whole solution, of course. We need a lot of solutions for dark and quiet skies, but it's part of the solution as well. And it will help us also not when we look inwards, but also outwards. So I think AI will touch on a lot of interesting topics.
Yeah.
And again, more than being part of the problem, I think AI is part of the solution for space exploration, looking into space, into Earth, and out.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And this is a really good example about the satellite observation and the telescopes, and especially it just came to my mind. Like our eyes, we can consider as a telescope. We have some sizes, it's limited. And the neurons in the brain related to our vision is the like part of AI, you know? That's the same. When we create a telescope with the eye, you have a limited image capturing mechanism, and you apply AI like a neurons and process it. For example, Hubble telescope was amazing. Then now we have a James Webb Space Telescope, like very huge mirror takes the images from the different, let's say, galaxies. I mean, that's the same, but that's the really good puzzle piece. How AI will implement it to these exact spots as a puzzle piece in the space technologies for humanity. That will be a really nice challenge we will see. And in this point, as you mentioned a little bit before the generation, next generations are part of this. To be honest, for me, when I look back, I didn't have even a smartphone when I was a child. We were just reading a book. Now it's extremely different. They have a smartphone screens used by AI, and the next generations will have maybe different tools with more advanced computation mechanisms. I don't know what will happen, but the next generations will be part of it for sure.
I think you touch a very interesting point on artificial intelligence and the new generation. I feel the new generation will be much more comfortable with using artificial intelligence. For instance, many people think that I'm crazy for this story, but I come from Santiago, from Chile, where because of climate change, when I started driving, it was not a rainy city anymore. We used to have a lot of rain. We have mega droughts for decades now. So I'm not really used to driving in the rain. And Dubai, well, there's no rain. So I'm not really, really used to it. So I found myself that for the first time I had rented a Tesla when I was in Belgium. And I was driving from the Netherlands to France. And in the middle of Belgium, which it was a highway that I didn't know, it was the first time I was driving there, it started raining so much. And I was like, okay, I can handle this. And then it got worse and worse. And I started to see that people were stopping in the highway. But I didn't know what to do because I couldn't see anything, nothing. And as you see, our eyes are limited. Like we see in the visible light. Whereas we wouldn't be able to see a black hole, for example, because a black hole you see with infrared, it uses another type of technology. So we're very limited. So in this panic, I decided to say, you know what? I'm just going to activate the self-driving mode because Tesla has that. And I thought, I'm just going to trust the machine because the machine has a lot of sensors. It sees things that I can't see. So I took a leap of faith and I said, and there were more people in the car and they thought I was insane. But I said, honestly, I am at a point, I mean, I'm a technology fan by nature because I'm in the space industry and I trust it. So I was like, nope. And I activated the autopilot and the car drove us for 15 minutes under the rain, out of the rain to safety. Wow. It stopped. It's like turned. It did everything. And I didn't even, you have to have the hands on the steering wheel because otherwise it stops. But I was not driving at all for 15 minutes, pouring rain. I couldn't see anything. And well, I'm alive today here because the car worked. So when I told later, like my parents or grandparents, they thought I was out of my mind. And they're like, how can you trust a computer more than you? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, but even though I'm a millennial, I was just in the generation that I had to look for encyclopedias for information. Then I had the diskettes and the floppy disks from CDs to now artificial intelligence. I kind of went through all of it and I saw the development. I do have a trust in artificial intelligence. So I think we're going to have a huge revolution in application because people are going to be more comfortable.
Definitely. It will be a fundamental lifestyle. Like, for me, it's hard for me to trust that AI driving methodologies. I also tried a few different cars with AI implemented AI tools, self-driving options. I tried, but I was so suspicious. I mean, it will work for sure, but next generation will live with that. Yeah. Next generation will never see a car you drive manually. They will just sit inside the car, they will press the button, the car will go. I mean, after maybe 20, 30 years.
Yeah, but imagine all the potential things from that. Because that's what people think. Sometimes they think AI is here. It will replace certain jobs for sure. But it won't replace all of them. It's just going to complement other jobs. I think AI is taking care of much of the things that as a lawyer, it was very time consuming. Yeah. And now I can dedicate my brain capabilities to things that AI can't do right now. So definitely. It's complementary.
Definitely.
So much so, I was looking at, there was this concert and I saw that they now have these robots that use artificial intelligence to orchestrate a full orchestra like a director. I'm really into music. I think you're as well. So they were using AI for this. And it was quite interesting to see how it doesn't replace a director, but it helps because it was a huge orchestra. So the artificial intelligence could help replicate and direct other areas that the director was maybe losing. And yeah, I thought it was a quite interesting way to complement that. And it was actually in the area of music, which I think it touches the heart of a lot of space people. I know you're
Mhm.
also into music, very
Yeah,
music
yeah,
fan, like space pianist and
yeah.
all. So yeah, and besides artificial intelligence, like the arts, bring the arts into STEAM and the
Yeah.
arts into space. What is your take on arts in space, music in
Well,
space?
it's really good topic. We can talk maybe 3 hours for that because
Another
I mean,
podcast.
yeah, another episode because like right now, AI tools, technology is also affecting to music industry or photography. That
Yeah.
I am photographer. I was using some camera 10 years ago, which is extremely different from now because in the digital cameras you implement these software tools that you create extremely good color combinations. So into the music, as you said, it's a basic example. Maybe we check the Instagram. I see too many editing, AI editing, feeds. Like the presidents are singing, for example. Trump is singing, but imagine that you don't know the Trump or it's kind of real. It's so interesting. They replicate the voice, they replicate the melodies. I mean, if you are DJ, you don't have to do anything. You can just press some tools. The computer mixes the track for you, and you go there. You just dance, and track happens. If you are singer, maybe you will just record something. You will press the button. You will pretend. I don't know, but it will be affected. The social life will be affected too much, I think.
One thing is like commercialization maybe of like music, as you said. Now everyone can sing. You can just fix your voice or
Yeah.
everything. Um, I think on the one hand that's going to take off, but on the other, I think sometimes in certain areas technology goes faster than our brains or humans go.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw, I think it was in Sweden now, that they want to revert their decisions of having computers in schools, and they want kids to start writing again. Just because the writing method is slower, and the way you process information is also
Mm-hmm.
slower, because our brains are quite slow actually, and we're not as fast. We don't have artificial
Mm-hmm.
intelligence
Mm-hmm.
actually, so we're quite slow, and we need those capabilities. So at least for I'm a huge fan of music. I play piano every
Mm-hmm.
single day, and for me it's an exercise more than that, like more than an X for the playing, because I love playing like Ludovico Einaudi. But yeah, maybe artificial intelligence will play better than me. But for me, it's just a more of like a training of my skills, of my brain. I'm still studying my PhD, so when I'm stuck or when I need to think on my job, actually, I work in business development in SJC. When I need to come for a solution, the first thing that I do is sit on the piano and just let it like flow. But you start using it for other
Yeah.
things, commercialization, and if you become a singer or a DJ, if you do it for as a profession, I think it'll be highly affected.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to just being human, I think we'll go back to all those things. I think we'll go back a little bit more into reading, into writing, into
Yeah.
doing the manual things that we need, because technology went super fast and our brains really didn't develop that
Definitely,
fast.
definitely. Briefly, in the space law or in your specific field that you work on, how do you see the following 20 years?
It's an interesting thought because when you're studying in law school, you studied ancient Roman law. And honestly, we have the same laws and it has the same application as we have now. It's been more than 2,000 years and we're still the same. Like, we haven't
It's the
changed.
same with the rocket science, I will comment.
So, those principles or how we are, we haven't really changed much. And I think in the future, we'll still have the same problems. We will continue we will evolve on the
Mm-hmm.
topic. We will start regulating on space resources and space exploration or intergalactic things. Like we're gonna start really the topic is gonna change. Maybe we're not gonna fight over a cow, but we're still gonna fight
Mm-hmm.
over theft, over like any part of the criminal law. Like we're still going to fight over
Mm-hmm.
the same things. because we keep doing the same things because we're
Yeah.
still so human, which is like quite interesting. And I think the topic will change, but the principles or how we're fighting, it will continue to be. And AI helps. I think AI is going to replace a lot of the things that as lawyers we do, drafting emails, contracts. Maybe they're better. But the thing is that AI doesn't understand until now the human part of us. AI in a divorce can say, this is the most efficient way to divide all the assets. But people don't want that.
Mhm.
When people are divorcing, people want to rip each other's eyes. That's what they want to do because we're human, because we're hurt. I want to hurt the other person. And if that person cheated on me, well, now I want to get all your money. Doesn't make any sense because getting all
Yeah.
the money is not going to help anything and it's not going to bring back or fix anything. But we're so human that AI can tell me this is a more efficient way.
Mhm.
Excellent. But as a lawyer, I have a client and I do understand what the client is feeling and wants to do. So then I can be the human element and ask AI, what are the 5 best scenarios for this situation? And then I'll assess because I have to consider the humanity of them because we keep fighting for the same cow that people were fighting 2000 years ago.
Yeah, we have actually similarity in rocket science because, as you mentioned in the law, actually from outside it can be seen that okay, rocket science is emerging, it's extremely good technology, but no, we use the same or almost similar engines back in 50s, 60s because the mathematics and the physics is the same. If you want to generate a trust, if you generate energy, it's the same. The only thing is materials are changing. You have a lightweight materials and resistance materials compared to 50s or 60s, but in principle everything is the same. So basically it's also important for the rocket technology for upcoming 20 years will be mostly the same. The only thing is, as SpaceX did, you improve your manufacturing capabilities, business models, material compatibilities between the different chemicals, fuels, then you can achieve better combination of a rocket system that is more efficient,
Yeah.
more cost effective, and maybe reduce the cost to go to the moon and the Mars. But in principle, it's the same. There is just one different topic. It's if those of you in the audiences can search nuclear propulsion. It's
Yeah.
extremely different field. You use the nuclear fission to generate like thrust to go to the long distances. That will be different technology, but in the chemical systems it will be almost the same. But I see in the future that I think SpaceX will go to the Mars with a huge rocket. At least they will try to reach to the Mars without human, of course. But especially this Starship rocket
Yeah.
they develop now, it's extremely huge. I mean, and the technology they use, material they use, the composite materials, which is lightweight. I mean, with this huge system, if you would use the same materials that 50s, 60s, the metals, it could not be possible now to fly it. But I think it will be a game changer.
We discussed before that I was in LA and we're all space fans, and everywhere we go, we do space things. But I always tell people, like, there's life outside space. And many people are like, is there? I'm like, yes, there is. What kind of life outside of space do you have?
Yeah, it's actually it's interesting for me because when I look back, I was like a space nerd more. Then by the time after I finished my PhD, it's a challenging process. I decided to also focus on my hobbies. So I moved here almost 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I had a different life for sure in Istanbul, Turkey. I was doing rowing, I was doing photography, and a little bit singing as a hobby. When I moved to Abu Dhabi, I started to continue that one. It's not 100% as it is in Istanbul, but I am following the music industry. I'll try to improve my, let's say, English songs to be a singer as a it's hobby, not my work, but it's nice to be engaged with the musicians. I am photographer, so I would like to go for Formula One or go for like some action events to take the pictures. I really like all of these. How about you? How is life in Dubai?
Well, I think I continue with my hobbies. I'm also a big Formula One fan, big Max Verstappen fan. So that is like the only sports that I actually watch. I don't watch, I mean, the World Cup, but it's every 4 years, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't even watch the Olympics, like just Formula One and the World Cup. Music, I feel when you're in the space industry, for some reason, music always brings everyone together, or you're in the arts, like visual arts, or in music. But it's really rare to find people in the space industry so passionate about the space industry who don't have this other side. I don't know why it is, but it makes a lot of sense, at least to me. So, of course, I play the piano, which helps me a lot with clearing it. Even Einstein, he played the violin every
Yeah.
time he was stuck with a thought. So, I mean, if it works for him, it must work for me. And books. It's a huge part of my hobby. Um, I always set my reading goal. So for this year, I had 30 books, and I'm already in book 32. So now I'm reading literature because
Wow.
usually I read non-fiction.
Okay.
But then when I reach my limit, now I start reading literature as enjoying. But I think books are a big passion of mine.
Yeah.
Books are great because I feel there's certain people that I would have loved to speak to, but they're not here anymore. And most of them have written something, or they have a biography, or people who are really hard to reach to get to know. Like, I would love to have a cup of coffee with like Jeff Bezos, but how hard is that? So I read a lot of the books that have been written about him or things. So it's a great way to tap into
Yeah.
other people's brains and lives. So I like that a lot about books. And I do feel that people are very much like books. Like, most people are judged by its cover. I think
Yeah.
the vast majority only reads the introduction. Very few people really go deep into
Yeah.
the book,
It's
and everyone
changed.
listens to the critics.
Yeah, it
And that
changed a
is a
lot.
reflection of people.
Yeah. Sometimes I was thinking that I wish the books were invented after the PC, because it would be really good to have books, like always reading the books, not the checking the computer for the information. So
Yeah, after reading Atomic Habits, I realized that you can change that. So now, instead of, I limited my social media amount of time that I can have on my phone. And which is weird, but I read sometimes 2 books at the same time. So I have them in the strategic places in my house that if I sit down to chill, instead of
then you
reaching for my
find the book.
phone, the book is right
Okay.
there. So you make your
Not the
habit.
phone, the book.
Exactly. So you make your habits that are good habits that you want to have easier, and the bad habits, you
Yeah.
make them harder. So that's how you get a lot of more reading.
Yeah,
But reading is a huge part of my life.
That's the strategy. We should all have a strategy that focus our hobbies and our profession.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the nice chat. After a long time, after these
Yeah.
IAC, we had these nice talk about technology, AI, space, and the hobbies. So thank you so much.